this meeting to order. This is the Police and Parish Ordinance Committee meeting for Tuesday, June 9th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mack?
Here.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. Calvert?
Here.
Mr. Grillinghouse?
Here.
All right, item 3, review, discussion, recommendations of ordinances for new business.
Okay.
We have some, go ahead.
Well, you know, I realized, looking at the agenda, there's a change to an ordinance that we did not too long ago on there that is housekeeping. Y'all remember when we talked about not changing after a plat was signed, that you couldn't go back and change? Re-subdivide.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we found out after we said that there were some plats back in the day that didn't necessarily get signed. All they did was get filed. And somebody pulled a little loophole on us on that deal. So this ordinance that's on there, didn't come before us, but basically says signed and or filed. Just to give them some, you know, a leg to stand on. So we didn't bring it back before the ordinance committee, but it is going to be introduced. And that's just because we assumed, because every plat is signed now, that they were signed forever. And back in the day, they didn't always get signed. So it says signed and or filed and or signed.
So essentially, the change is going to enact what we originally intended.
It's the same thing we
Yeah.
intended.
Gotcha.
It just fixes clarifies a little housekeeping issue.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah,
All
that
right.
was in my district, right? Yeah.
So we essentially don't have any other new business because of unfinished old business. So we're going to go straight to item 4. Review, discussion, and recommendations of ordinances, old business. Item A, continue discussion to amend ordinances to specify that if a change in type of structure occurs, that the developer shall go back before planning and the council for approval. Any discussion?
Yeah, we got, yeah.
If anybody else wants to.
Let's ask Derek.
Go ahead, Derek.
You want to ask you a question because Shane and I were talking about this earlier, and it's a concern. You know, we were talking about. Let me tell you what's brought this discussion up is that sometimes subdivisions will be developed for one thing, or you think they're being developed for something. Somebody will buy the whole subdivision and then technically make a trailer park out. You follow what I'm talking about? It happened in Shane's district. That a guy bought every lot and then decided to put trailers on in lieu of building houses, and there was a lot line problem with doing that, wasn't it, Shane?
It was.
Okay, so what we're wondering is we were looking at if you change the subdivision, let's say from houses to trailers, that you require you to come back and go through planning. But we also realize that there's really nothing in the ordinance that tells you to identify what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Meaning that.
What he means is what specific structures being placed within the lots on the subdivision. The development is more about the actual design and development, I guess, development itself versus what type of residential structures are going to be placed on the development. You see what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, I think this starts.
There.
I'm
Just
sorry.
for the record,
Name and address,
name
I'm
and
sorry.
address, please.
What's that? Oh,
Just for the record.
my name is Derek J. Murphy. I guess 18320 Highway 42, Port Vincent, Louisiana 70726.
Thank you.
This kind of falls under, and I hate to go the legal route, because what happens is when you start getting into what type of structures, it's a single family versus a commercial use. It goes by uses. So it's hard to sit here and try to say, well, you can't have a trailer on there or your house. That usually comes with restrictions of the land. I know in other parishes sometimes they require that you turn in the restrictions with the final plat, but it's really just to kind of see it. You can't, that's more of a civil matter where you can't force them to do that. Where you do have that is, like with a trailer park, you can't sell individual lots in a trailer park. It is a park. It's a continuous parcel, but it also has certain provisions in there that you got to have. You got to have concrete pads. You got to have this. You got to have the aprons and that kind of stuff. So if it becomes under the trailer park ordinance, then there's things that has to be done that completely changes it. If it's just single family lots or single lots, that happens to just have trailers on it, I don't think you can specify you can't have that type of structure on it because the use is still a single family. I think you get into discriminatory things as well. You probably need to check with Chris, kind of outside my realm on that. But I do know, which I don't want to get into, and this is just me talking, is starting to dictate what people can actually put on their lots. Even in areas, Baton Rouge and Ascension, that has zoning, it's about density. It's not about what you can and can't put on it. You can have a single family, you can have commercial, you can have multifamily, you can have duplexes. So it's all this different criteria, but single family is single family. They don't specify you have to have a brick home or a wood house or anything like that. You can't get into that kind of deal. So, and again, with the trailer park, it comes with a lot of different requirements that the parish, I think a certain type of street you got to do and all that. So if they're just subdividing off of a main road or even adding a road, as long as it's not restrictive based on the covenants of that piece of property, they should be able to put whatever they want, which is probably not, I know what y'all trying to do, and I understand it, I just don't know.
Well, Shane, tell them a little bit about what you went through, what happened.
Okay, no problem. You get the floor.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. So basically, it's kind of like exactly what you're envisioning in your head. It was a subdivision with improvements. It was designed, developed, and approved by the parish. It had public streets. It had the streets that, that was paved. It had the drainage system, sewer system, the whole 9 yards. Subdivision lots never sold. I guess you could say the lots subdivision sold to a new owner. He changes the restrictions on the property himself and goes in and puts mobile homes, single residential family dwelling, instead of what the I guess you could say the folks in the neighborhood.
So they had some
felt
lots.
like it was originally designed
All
for.
the lots were unsold.
All the lots were
Every single one
unsold.
of them.
Okay, they're all unsold. So what happens is in that case, see, he controlled the HOA at that point. He
Yep.
controlled
Right.
the civil side of those lots. So he can modify. See, one thing is, like, let's say he sold half the lots, and then he came in, and then those houses were under the restrictions of one thing, and then they go in and change the restrictions. Those people can do recourse back onto the people that changed the restrictions or didn't adhere to the restrictions. But from a council standpoint, I get what you're saying, but I really think don't know how to fix that.
Well, I think too, if there would have been one lot sold that had a house on it, then the ordinance protecting named neighborhoods would have kicked in. And we could have said,
Right.
hey, it's a named neighborhood,
Designed for stick
designed
home.
for, and,
Yeah.
but in this particular case, and Italy, this is one of those rare occurrences,
I
but
guess the economy got him. He didn't sell no lots, didn't sell
Yeah,
nothing.
he sold
so
the
the
whole
only thing he can
development to
do-
somebody else, and then he controlled the HOA, just like you said, and he can change it however he wants. I mean, okay.
Again, that's something I would definitely get up with
Slippery
Chris a
slope.
little bit and just kind of talk with him as well if there's a different way. From an engineering standpoint, like I said, even with zoning, it's about density, not about you can't put a trailer, you can't do that. So just know that you can't really specify what they can, just the use.
Appreciate that. We probably need to defer this, do a little more research, and see if we want to bring this back up at a
Yeah,
later
if we
time.
need to, we will.
anything
Yeah.
else, Gary? All right, thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
Item B. Oh, I'm sorry. Any discussion from the audience? All right. We're going to move on then. Item B, continue discussion of Chapter 125 subdivision regulations, Article 2, mobile home parks, Section 49-52. And I'm assuming this is where we're talking about some of the restrictions as far as paved roads,
Yes.
those things.
Mm-hmm.
I thought we had come to,
Well, we
Consensus
need to
on
make
that.
sure that the ordinance is written the way we want it, so that we can,
The ordinance that's in front of y'all made the changes that y'all have already talked about. There were just a few things that we had questions on that y'all just need to clarify, and then y'all
Okay.
can make a motion.
Okay, so the first item looks like on the density, was everybody satisfied with the 7.5 mobile homes per acre? I mean, that was the density thing, which is Acres what? How many square feet? 43,000?
43,560.
43,560.
Let's see something. I mean, while we're doing it, let's just figure it out. So 43,560 divided by 7.5 is 5,800 square feet per trailer. And right now, we're at 10,000 as a minimum on a regular lot with sewer. No, if you have community sewer, I think it goes down to 10. And all trailer parks will ultimately have community sewer.
Actually, I don't think there's any if you got community.
Oh, yeah, it's 10.
Because we've been,
I think it's 10,000 on a minor resub, on a minor resub, I think
It's 10.
yeah, it's 10. It's like
Okay.
14, 12, and then 10, or something like that.
16, 12, and 10.
16, 12, and 10, is that what it is? Okay. So is everybody good with the 7.5 on the density?
I think that's plenty
Well,
big enough, yeah.
If you think about it, I got to break it down from my simple brain, but you 5,800, I break it down to 5,000. That's about a 50 by 100 lot for each trailer. Is that, y'all feeling pretty good about that situation? I mean, that's
He said
is that
go-
enough
16
property per trailer?
Well,
16
here-
feet wide,
here's
doesn't have
the
a
deal.
backspace, I think so.
Here's the deal, the minimum lot size was 40 by 145, is what the original ordinance called for.
Okay.
And we determined that it was repetitive to give them minimum lot size and at the same time, give them a density. So we were striking 6, and then we were gonna make sure that 7.5 is what we wanted. Because I think 40 times 145 is still,
580.
is, huh?
5,800.
Yeah, so
It's still the same thing.
it's the same square footage per lot, we're just not designating a size. We're letting them figure out how they want the lot to be laid out.
Just a thought to think about is if you take away the lot size, well, then someone could come in there and they could put the trailers extremely close to each other, which might not be such a great
Well, they
thing.
gotta have setbacks,
They
isn't
still
it in
got the
there?
same setback regulation,
Yeah.
they still gotta have 5,800 square feet per lot.
Okay. They still got to have, where's that written? Did we?
Well,
not take that out?
7.5 per acre, 5,800
Now,
acre.
where's the setback?
Yeah, but it don't, but does it say, and maybe it does. Does it talk about that, to try to
Go ahead,
ensure
Mom.
that?
She's-
I'm sorry.
So I took the notes out, but last time when y'all talked about it, there's apparently a fire marshal code that they have to follow.
Okay,
And that was the answer to that question, that they have to follow a fire marshal code, so they can't put them so much, and then there has to be a setback or a buffer
so
zone.
when they design that, apparently they would know that if they're,
Okay.
or the planning would tell
The
them.
engineer, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the first question, is the first thing that was in doubt was, do we want to leave the density the same? And I think everybody agreed with that, that was the other one.
I think
Yeah.
so. And then the next
And then
page,
the next one was, we talked about the roadway and the asphalt and all that stuff, and I think the one thing we came up with is that we still need the protective apron, between the parish road and,
did we decide, the other night when we were talking about John's deal, did we decide, ever find out what DOT requires?
I don't know, we introduced it with the understanding that we would amend it this week to whatever the DOT.
Because
number was.
if it's 25 feet, then this would need to say that,
Oh, yeah.
wouldn't you think? What do you think, Terry?
I think if you just have it mirror the ordinance for what we decide, then it would, in essence, if you change it for over everything, it should have changed this one,
Right.
Right,
as opposed to changing this one, it would only change this particular
Right.
case.
So we're gonna leave a
Leave that like
protective
it is,
apron
yeah.
in there, we can introduce it like this, and when we have a better understanding of what the number is, we can plug the number.
going on to the state highways or the parish
What
roads,
does DOT require between a state highway?
when you turn off,
And
the concrete,
On a commercial business, when they design the apron, there is a minimum concrete distance.
So you won't be spinning out in gravel.
over the driveway.
Yeah.
You can put asphalt.
No,
Well, I
no,
understand, but you can't put gravel. You have,
You do asphalt or concrete.
you know
what's
how
the-
far
what's
it's
the
gotta
depth-
be?
Depth distance.
Past the right of way.
He don't need a speaker.
Past the right of way.
Jody, you gotta,
Pass the right.
oh, past the right of way.
Past, yeah, it goes past the right of way.
That would make
So all
sense.
you gotta do, you gotta be within there, right? So too, I tell you what I normally do is if we do a 35 or 25-foot radius, then at the end of that radius is usually what we try to do, because that's where you're gonna have your turning movements. So you wanna make sure that that's the protected part.
Right.
Make sure you're coming in and out. That's what's gonna rut on you. That's what's gonna fail on you.
Yeah, well, that was our concerns with, if you just put gravel all the way up to the road, it's a safety issue.
And
You
you
know.
sit there and spin.
So y'all are leaving gravel in the trailer parks?
Yeah, it's
we're-
gotta be
we're-
limestone.
We're going back to fix them. We're gonna make trailer parks
Buildable.
more cost effective to build, but we're gonna try to maintain some of the safety features that need to be. So one of the thing was to maintain a concrete or asphaltic apron, and so we have 20 here, but, so you say it needs to be equidistant to the radius, or?
So if you have a 35-foot or a 25-foot radius, that's, the end of that radius is where I would
Gentlemen,
basically.
just for clarification, number 4 talks about access to each mobile home site within the trailer park.
Mm-hmm.
Does it actually address the apron coming off of a state or public highway? I don't think it does.
That's why I was wondering about protective.
No, it
apron.
says access to each mobile home site shall be provided by a 24-foot wide private drive. They're talking about the roadway in the trailer park will be 24 foot wide, and the minimum, and it shall,
Read the whole thing? Start at the beginning?
Where you at?
Number 4.
Yeah.
4B?
Gotcha. It's on the-
yeah. But I think that's the roadway.
Yeah, that's the roadway.
That's the road. And what we're trying to do is, we're gonna let you put.
Oh, adequate circle turnaround, that's the rear,
We're gonna let you put crushed concrete and limestone, but we wanted to maintain the protective apron.
so if we don't have it in there, the parish is gonna require protective apron, correct?
I don't know.
We need to make sure it's in there?
Well, yeah, we need to make sure it's in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you need to add that, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
That's okay.
Thanks,
So-
Shane. I'm glad you pointed that out.
You were saying, he said 45-foot or?
He says
25
whatever
or
the
35.
radius is. If you got a 35-foot radius, then the apron needs to be 35 foot deep. You got a 25-foot radius, the apron needs to be 25 foot deep. So that by the time you're through the turning process, you're straight again. So he just says that the apron depth is based on the radius, plus it has to be past the service. It's gotta go past the
Can you
state
do that
service.
so that people don't, when they go to pull out, they don't have to go into the other lane or cut it short and drop off and tear up the edge of the thing?
Yep, gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
so we need to write that in there. How did we want it in?
Go ahead, Lauren.
Do you just want to repeat how y'all want that put in there?
That there will be a protective apron of equal to the radius of the driveway and equal to the servitude. Or equal to the servitude.
Or
So,
something, yeah.
so you need to, so if the radius is 35, then the depth of the driveway, the apron needs to be 35, and if 35 doesn't get past 32, then you got to
Go to
at
the
least
servitude.
you gotta get to the end of the servitude.
Yeah,
That makes sense. Thanks.
whichever's greater,
Yeah,
the radius or
Or
the
the-
depth of the servitude, whichever's greater.
okay.
Okay.
All right, next
Right.
on that.
Right, and then, like 5, the question was, they wanted to eliminate the circle, and
No,
we suggested that either a T-turn that matches the subdivision requirements or a circle, either one would work.
Yep.
So we're gonna add a circle turnaround at 35 feet, or was there a dimension on a T-turn, or what?
we gotta be 55 feet from the edge.
Yeah, there's also in the subdivision regs, there's minimal standards for both.
You just want to pull that from,
You know, just pull the
Pull that
circle
from
and
there.
T-turn from the subdivision regulations and plug them into 5.
I think that's right.
Okay.
If they were,
We're striking 6 because we're gonna maintain the density of 7.5 and 5,800 square feet. It's repetitive. And then we're gonna go from solid concrete on the runners to say solid concrete, crushed concrete, or limestone parking area.
Repeat
Right.
that? Repeat that?
Each trailer or mobile home shall be set on a concrete footing of a minimum of 4 inches thick and have 4 4-inch thick, 18-foot by 24-foot solid concrete runners. That's parking area pad to be measured from the back edge of the curb to the surface in front of the site. And all we're doing is eliminating solid concrete to say solid concrete, crushed concrete, or limestone.
Okay.
Yep, that
And
don't get
we're
rid of
calling
the
a
pad.
parking area instead of a parking pad. Basically, we're not making them pour a concrete runner, we're giving them the option of 3 different surfaces to put there. I mean, you don't want them just blocking a trailer up on ground.
No, you don't.
So that was a modification to say solid concrete, crushed concrete, or limestone, right? Go ahead.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Shane.
Okay, so just reading this, I think I understand the intent here, but it says each trailer or mobile home shall be set on concrete footings of a minimum of 4 inches thick and have a 4-inch thick, 18-foot by 24-foot solid concrete parking pad. That doesn't eliminate the runners for the trailer. So was the intent to eliminate the runners of
I
the
think the
trailer?
intent was to eliminate concrete runners.
They wanted a concrete pad
Okay,
poured under them.
so I think we need to change the wording of that to eliminate the concrete runners, because I don't think the current wording eliminates it.
We just gave them the option, we're not getting rid of the runners, we're just giving them the option to use 3 different subs.
Okay, so to me, the way you got it worded,
don't-
you're
don't seem
eliminating,
right.
you're eliminating the option on the parking pad. You're not eliminating the option on the
Yeah, that's what it
runners.
looks like.
So we need to add that blue wording to that very first sentence, the very first
Right,
concrete.
They gotta do, the
Yeah.
footings that can either be,
So each trailer or mobile home shall be set on.
Solid concrete, crushed concrete, or limestone footings.
Okay.
Okay,
Good catch, Shane.
yeah,
And do y'all still want area, not pad?
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
And then everything else rolls along except we get to 11, and we're gonna let them, 11 was that same thing that the state fire marshals got regulations on how far the trailers have to be apart, and they still have to use 1,500 square feet. So we're eliminating what the minimum is. We're making, follow the stop fire marshals, have 1,500 square feet per trailer, right?
yeah, I think those new trailers, you know how they always used to be 16 by 80? I think now they're 16 by 72
Yeah,
to
they-
take into account that they need more backyards and things.
And then,
You can get them the other way
and
too.
then we don't really have we don't require anybody else to have a landscape plan. Why are we requiring trailer parks to have a landscape plan? That was 13.
And you have a buffer too,
Well, yeah, it's commercial, so you got that, you've gotta have
Yeah,
that
the 8-foot
buffer, you
fence.
gotta have that buffer on any commercial property. That's part of the commercial design thing. Everyone's gotta have a buffer. And then 15 is 1 street light for every 3 lots.
Mr. Chairman, Derek, what we're trying to do is get rid of all these minor resubs that have been popping up with 2 and 3 and 4 trailers all over the place. Now, it's not gonna stop it completely, but these people that develop mobile home parks are going, guys, I've been having to try and find a piece of land to subdivide.
What y'all are doing is exactly right, because what happens is, you make it cost prohibitive for somebody to come in and try to do this and keep it all central.
Well, that's what happened. The previous council said, we don't want any more trailer parks in Livingston Parish, and it's backfiring. It's not accomplishing what their goal was
Well, they just found a way to do it without
without,
actually making a park.
right.
And in reality, the protections that a park gives, you kind of, like you said, it just backfires.
Right,
So-
that's right.
All right.
It's
so-
time.
So we heard, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So we got rid of 13. You were on, we went to
16.
15, so 16.
Yeah, we didn't change any of
I don't
that.
think anything, nothing the rest of the time was changed. Those are the only changes that were the ones we discussed.
Okay. Mr. Mack, you have anything?
No, I think you did a good job. you know, the changes that were made, I think it's gonna benefit people of Lewiston Parish, so.
I didn't have a question as I was looking through this. Of course, we didn't make a change to item 8, the garbage hoppers. Okay. Anything else, Mr. Talbot, Mr. King?
No, I think this is what we want to do. Yeah, I'll make a motion.
All right, motion by Mr. King.
What's the motion?
The motion is to send this to the council for approval with the changes that we made.
Tonight.
Yeah, we'll look at it
When we're
again
gonna
when we introduce it, you know, make sure everything's,
Say that again?
we'll look at it when we introduce it,
Okay.
just to make sure all the stuff's in there correctly. And if we need to tweak it, we'll be able to do that before we vote on it.
Okay. Second.
All right, cool.
Second by Mr. Mack. Anything from the audience? All right, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Awesome.
Good work, guys.
All right. Item C, continued discussion on Chapter 7, Utilities, Article 5, Sewer Disposal Systems, Division 1, generally to amend and add Section 70-235, Responsibility for Grinder Pump System Maintenance. We didn't hear anything from legal on this, right, Mr. Talbot?
Chris hasn't responded yet, so the only thing I see on here is that we probably ought to take the and out between operation maintenance and then put and/or replacement. So it'd be the operation, maintenance, and/or replacement of grinder
Gotcha.
pump systems.
In case they want to go to a lift station or something. they
Right.
I agree.
And I'm not sure that we need to say including those that existed prior to effective date of this ordinance, because I believe that we're saying that it is now the responsibility that they have of all the operation and maintenance of grinder pump systems. So
Tie into their system, they're make them liable for it.
it will be the responsibility of the community sewer system. So I don't think that including those in existence needs to be added at this point in time. I think that the ordinance speaks for itself, that they will be responsible for the operation, maintenance, and/or replacement.
Hang on, let me think about that. I think mentioning it would pretty much take out the question of whether it's
Okay. Well,
retroactive or not.
We can leave it in there if you want to. I just thought.
I mean,
We can leave it in there and let Chris tell us.
I would leave it and then see what he
yeah,
says.
I mean, you agree?
I agree with you.
So it's gonna read the operation, maintenance, and/or replacement of grinder pump systems, including those that existed prior to the effective date of this ordinance, will be the responsibility of the community sewer system that it is connected to.
I mean, as far as legalese goes,
If you don't.
we
then
can
it's not
always
gonna
go back and remove it if Chris says there's a issue.
Before we
with
vote
that.
on it, yeah.
Yeah, or we can remove before we vote
Or
on
we-
it. It just says
yeah.
no problem. So.
Yep, that's right.
I'd like to make a motion that we introduce it as we just talked about.
Motion by Mr. Talbot,
Second.
second by Mr. Mack.
Any comment from the audience?
Come on up.
Y'all good? No,
Are
he's
you
just
good?
saying thumbs
That's
up.
a thumbs up?
I
All
like
right,
it.
Awesome.
Finally. But we're not through yet.
All right. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. All right. Item D. Is that right? Yeah. Continued discussion of Chapter 70 Utilities, Article 5 Sewer Disposal Systems, Division 2, Private, Section 70-236 General Requirements. Let's see here. Go ahead.
Keon sent me a text this morning and I called him. I didn't see it till this afternoon, but I called him and talked to him. They are in agreement that if an existing sewer system has a certification that is within 2 years, that they will just start issuing the letter. Power on or power off. They'll change the MOP to say that. They did though have some concerns about the way the ordinance was written, and the email addressed the four. And I think that we're gonna try to have Shane, you had talked to the guy at
Brent Conti, yeah, he's with
Brent,
Region 9,
that
yeah.
we're gonna try to have a conference call because of the COVID deal and address some of those concerns in the wording of the ordinance. So they've asked that they concur on what we're trying to do. They're not comfortable with the ordinance as it is exactly written, so they have asked us to defer the introduction for a couple weeks to make sure we get all the wording right.
I'm okay with that.
Because it's very, very important to get.
Yeah, I mean, so I think the big issue that everybody came and talked about was, you know, if your power's off, they didn't come inspect, and if you had a certification within a year, then they issued the letter. And if it was more than a year, you had to go spend some more money. If your power was on, they would come inspect, no matter how old the certification was. And if your tenant had unplugged the pump, or the GFI was tripped, or any little thing was out of order, then it was a fail, and you had to go through the recertification process. So by getting them to agree that the certifications are good for 2 years, and they won't inspect power on or power off, just issue a letter, then if you're a landlord with a mechanical sewer treatment plant, if you handle your business and maintain a adequate certification every 2 years, then when your landlord, when your tenant goes in there, there's no delay. They immediately get the letter to get the power turned on, which addresses 90% of the concerns that we were talked about by the people that came up here that night when we had the hearing. So I think that given the fact that we've made tremendous progress with the health unit, let's give them the opportunity to address some of their concerns in the ordinance with some of this wording to make sure that we don't pass something that's gonna be subject to the interpretation 2 or 3 different ways.
I don't have a problem deferring it. Are they gonna come talk to us as a committee, or are they gonna go talk to us?
I think
They
by
wanted to have a
meeting?
conference call with the committee,
Have a conference call with the committee, so
the
we'll
ordinance
get.
committee.
Okay. I don't necessarily have a problem with that.
Do we want to do it during a committee meeting, or is it going to be hard to get them to do
So,
that?
I think we're gonna have to, I mean, see and so I think they wanna talk about some of the concerns. I don't know that we can have the whole committee meeting.
Well, no, I mean, they can talk to one of us, or, you know,
I'm okay with
talk
that.
to one of us, and just, you can present what they want.
Right, I mean, and I think one of us and the 2 girls and them could have a conference call and, cause they're ultimately gonna make the changes to make sure it relays, you know, what they want. And then I think that at that point in time, we can introduce it. You know, I just don't wanna introduce it right now and with some of the concerns they have in the wording.
Okay.
And I think Keon's, his biggest concern, and I think Conti's biggest concern was that the way some of the changes in wording could lead to different interpretations, and they don't want to have multiple interpretations. They want the ordinance, you know,
To be clear.
So you want to defer this till next Tuesday, or? 2
yeah,
weeks?
next Tuesday.
Next
Just
Tuesday?
defer it to next Tuesday.
Defer to next Tuesday. Anything else?
Yep.
Oh,
Mr.
yeah,
Murphy?
item 5,
Oh.
no, item E.
I wouldn't, I was talking about that. Anything
Oh,
else
on that?
Yeah.
No.
No, I think we good on that.
Okay. So, item E. Did you guys have anything on, you guys have anything on the,
I don't think we need it, do we?
Height, on item D? All right, item E, continue discussion of ordinance pertaining to gravity drainage. That's vague.
Well, remember,
That's what Jamie came
Jamie
up
came
with.
and talked to us, Jamie came and talked to us last meeting.
Say, this is either gonna be real short or really long, one of the two.
But where is E in here? Is it in the
It's
back
not,
of
it's not in here.
I don't think we have a paper sheet grabbing it.
I think she's
But,
going to get it.
remember they had put most everything in the packet, but it wasn't written in a way that we could pass it as an ordinance.
So essentially, if you didn't catch the last, barn burner of a meeting we had, we just want to put together something that would, for future reference, that the developer, I'm paraphrasing here, shows exactly what they did, where the utilities are, and that's going to be compiled in a database. That way, as soon as a year or two later, or 30 years from now, when if it matters, they can go and pull it up and know exactly where everything is.
You know where that piping is,
They're
and
all-
that's the
and-
major issue.
And they already are
Subsurface
submitting
pipe.
this, they're just submitting it, I guess, in a digital format for archiving.
Well, they're not, no, they're not submitting it at all,
Oh,
They're not submitting as-bills yet.
not as-built. We'll let Derek, he
Yeah.
can tell you exactly what they haven't been doing, or haven't been required to do.
go
Derek
ahead.
Murphy,
Yeah.
832 Vincent. Right now, what's happening is the only as-built basically required on any type of subdivision development, so forth, is with sewer. Sewer district requires an as-built, because they gotta take it over. As far as drainage, there's no actual as-built right now required. Put it in the ground, you've watched it, and now, like with, Gravity Drainage District 1 is actually cameraing every drainage line before the final inspection as well. And they finding things here and there, but, what we want actual data on, that the box get put in right, that the elevations get put in, properly. Same thing with the sewers we do. Where exactly are the stub outs, where exactly is this, that, and the other, what exactly, the pipe size, if it got changed in the field. Where the ditch is supposed to be located, there's some issues right now where a ditch might have been put in the wrong location. Now we're having to go try to move it in a subdivision, so just some different things like that. So, our as-built would be not only would it be, the subsurface drainage, but any ditches or laterals or anything like that we can go ahead and get some information on up front, put it in our database, and we can actually tell from that, is it in the right location, or do we agree with it, and so forth? Is it gonna drain the right way? I can tell you, some of the older stuff, you got things draining the wrong way, wrong pipes, different things like that. We just want to know it up front, and right now with the technology as it is, it's not a huge cost. We basically have to provide as-built and certify them correct in just about every other parish. So we're not asking for something that a lot of people aren't used to. The drainage district is pretty adamant about trying to have records.
Yeah, and two and five are in agreement with one on this thing. I got a phone call yesterday after the planning has their Monday afternoon meeting. So I got a phone call yesterday, and it was Sam, Natalie, and Dee Dee on the line, and they had some concerns, and I'm gonna kind of go over them. The ordinance wanted, they would like for the as-built to be submitted to planning. Well, we've had some issues with houses being built on top of drain lines or whatever. And so in an effort to utilize the as-bills, that when a set of, when you go to planning or when you go to permitting to buy a permit, you've got to plot your house on the lot thing. Then permitting would then send that to planning. Planning would compare that against the as-built to make sure that it did not encroach upon servitude or, over on top of any line. They would then send back to permitting approval. So they asked that be put in the ordinance, so that there was no question about, how we were gonna do things, that the as-bills would go to planning, and that one of the steps in the permitting of a house would be that the plotting of the house on the lot would then go to planning to make sure that it did not encumber a servitude at any point in time.
Because they hadn't been checking.
Okay,
No, and then Sam said, this is what Sam said, he said, and we need to have a remedy if that occurs. Sam's concerned that if, a submittal is made and it encroaches upon a servitude or over a drain line or something, he wants it to be understood that it will be the property owner's responsibility to secure an engineer and then pay the contractors to have whatever's in the way moved.
Well, I mean, that's Well, not understood?
I mean, you
That's the
would
problem,
think, I mean,
understood
but,
don't count.
but you and I both know, we've seen some things occur that just don't make sense. So he wants that introduced in the ordinance. He would like, go ahead, son.
I just wanted to ask a question, kind of like what Tracy was asking. So say, for instance, this happens. You submit your plot and your house is on this lot, and it was over a drain pipe, unfortunately. Then, to me, the planning department permit office wouldn't approve the permit, the building permit. And then, I mean, it would be,
Well,
it would
and
be
that's,
then up
oh,
to
and
them
that's
to
a
maybe
good-
move
good
the
thing.
house, or
But sometimes the house doesn't necessarily, sometimes
With
you
the build
can't
lines, you
necessarily,
can't.
sometimes they can't necessarily do it. I think the question is,
maybe you can't build it.
I don't think,
I get
well,
what you're
I think the parish doesn't want there to be any ambiguity on who would be responsible for making that lot marketable. They don't, you know what I'm saying? They don't want anybody to come back and say, okay, parish, it's your drain line, you need to get it moved now, it's in my lot. I think they want it clearly outlined that if that occurs, it is the property owner's responsibility. Shoot, it's only 6:40, you got plenty of time.
No. That
Oh, I thought
just
that
had
was your
another
alarm
question.
Go ahead.
going off. Okay, I'm sorry.
So let me ask you this, so if you have a preliminary plat and you build a subdivision and you got the as-built and you've got drainage servitudes and you got all this stuff, and you have a place where you're supposed to build, and you submit I mean, how is it gonna be on top of a drain line in the future if, I mean,
well, it shouldn't,
I mean-
and that would be an easy thing. When the survey's
then
done
the
after
parish
it's
review
built, the
engineer didn't do
as-built,
his job and he allowed it to be approved with a drain line in the wrong location.
Well, it could be that the as-built reflect that where the drain line's at, and it might be that the drain line's in the wrong location. I think the parish is concerned. That there's gonna, let's say, for example, I buy a $75,000 lot, and I'm getting ready to build this 3,000 square foot house on, and there's a gravity line down the center of it that the as-built shows, but the original plans didn't show. I think the parish wants to be sure that it's understood that it's not the parish's responsibility to move that line, and that the homeowner or landowner needs to go back to the person that sold them that lot. And I think it's it's a matter of the parish wants to have a definitive ruling on who has a responsibility in that situation. Derek,
Yeah.
come on up and shed some light on that.
see why,
I can give you my opinion on that. To me, the parish, I'm sorry for cutting off.
ahead.
Whenever it's my turn, I'd
Go
like
ahead.
to say
No,
something.
I apologize, go ahead.
Okay, so to me, the parish review engineer, the parish planning department needs to accept a little bit of responsibility in the fact that we need to do a thorough job of reviewing those plans and making sure it was designed and developed properly so that it's not approved such that there is the drainage line over that, right? And so, to me, the drainage, gravity drainage, district or the parish or whoever's responsible for the, sewer system, taking over that system, I mean, they may be liable for moving that, because, I mean, we as a parish did approve it, and I
So
think
let-
we need to talk about it.
Let me talk about two things.
I'm gonna say something. Shane, I can tell you right now that they didn't approve a single set of plans that had a line running through somebody's lot. All those lines are in servitudes. Here's the issue. This is why we need as-bills, because we do not require somebody on site 24/7 when lines are being laid to make sure they follow the plan. That's the whole reason for the as-bills. We are afraid that it would cost too much to develop land if we made an engineer have a representative on site every time a piece of pipe was laid. Am I correct, Derek? So the as-bills come back to give the parish a definitive map of where stuff is laid. If that line is in the middle of that lot, that contractor laid it in the wrong spot. However, we did not inspect, we didn't get it till we got the as-bills.
Well,
So
yeah,
Go ahead and speak, Derek.
Understand this, there's two different as-bills, I guess they were talking, two different things we're talking about. The first set of as-bills is, we go build a subdivision. We've got roads, drainage, sewer, ditches, laterals, the whole 9 yards. All right, so we're gonna require with this ordinance as before that final plat gets approved, that a surveyor goes out and surveys whatever they need to survey and certifies this is where everything is. This is where the pipe is. Oh, look, the pipe's 2 feet off, so we might have to adjust the servitude on the final plat. Things like that will pop up. And then Sam and them were talking about taking that as-built, that based off the final plat, and that as-built, putting a plot plan on it, making sure that house doesn't encroach on any of those servitudes and building lines, signing off on that. I don't think the problem you're gonna necessarily have is that you got an arbitrary drain line running through a lot. I think the things that happen is, and we found this more than a dozen occasions, but more frequently than you would think, is that there's a pipe running down supposedly the property line, and you're supposed to have a 7.5 foot servitude on each side of the property, and the house turns in a plot plan or turns in just their house plan, and they go build it, and they build it about 5 feet, which is a standard building line, off the property line. So now they're encroaching, and we've actually had a foundation basically sitting on a drain line because he built the 5 foot, which is a typical. He didn't realize that he had a servitude there, so it's basically taking it to the next step, and you're protecting that homeowner. I say, hey, this house that you have on here, instead of being 5 foot off the property line, you really need to be 7.5 or 8 feet because you have a drain line right there. And so there's two different things here. There's one that's the as-built on the subdivision side, so we know where everything is, and it's the right elevations, and the laterals in the right spot, that kind of stuff. And then there's let's plot a house on this lot with these servitudes based off the final plat, turn it over to permits, which goes with planning, double checks it. Oh, look, they're 5 foot off the property line, they really need to be 7. And you don't think that 2 feet's a big deal, but when you're trying to, when it's a 48 or 60 inch pipe and you're trying to fix it, every foot counts. So what happens is that in this particular case, the pipe was washing out and the house foundation was failing because it was sitting right on top of the pipe. So even that little bit. So I don't think you're going to end up with, oh, we got a pipe down the middle of the thing. I think what you're going to have is we got some offsets. This was a 20-foot servitude. They built 5 feet off the property line.
I got a question for you in that case. I mean, to me, I'm in agreement with you. I mean, I think that the plot plan, it does list the servitude, the drainage servitude, and the house should be reviewed and not be allowed to be placed inside the servitude.
Right.
And you'll be fine, right? Is that
Correct.
what you're saying?
What's happening is
Same way with
I
building a
don't
fence
think-
in the backyard. If it's in a drainage servitude, it's a no-go.
correct. You can't put a fence. That's why we created a fence permit, so you can't be in the drainage servitude with a fence. It's the same thing. What's happening is it's not that check right now. So we do the as-built and make sure it's in the right place during the construction and subdivision side, and then Sam comes in on the backside with permitting and planning and make sure that the house can't encroach on those servitudes.
So would you agree, I'm just asking here, that if we approved the ordinance and we went with the as-built and did it as you were talking, and then the parish review group reviews the plan of where the house is gonna be and approves that it be placed in this area, and then the property owner goes and builds his house, that the liability would be on the parish review
Yeah, but
group?
that's not what Sam wants, that's not what Sam's concerned about. He's not concerned about having the house built. He's concerned that when we deny the permit, that he wants a clear understanding that it is the responsibility of the homeowner. If a pipe needs to be moved or whatever, that it's not the parish responsibility, because he wants it clearly defined. It's not talking about after
When
the
they
house
catch
is
it,
built. He
and go,
says
"Oop."
that when.
It's their job to prove it.
Look, it's
What
just
he's
like
Without
we
a
do
permit, you
subdivision.
move
You might
the house. I
have,
follow
you might
you.
get deal on a 6-foot lot, you build a 50-foot house. Well, you got a drainage servitude, we know we can only build a 48.5 foot wide house. We already know that. We have that defined, here's your drainage servitude on here. They know they have to have a different type of house, or the lot has to be 2.5 feet bigger to account for that drainage servitude. You're gonna catch it. If you got these checks and balances in place, you should catch it and just tell the people you can't. It's not that you tell the people you can't build on it.
Right.
It's just that you need a 2-foot narrower house.
Or there's, I guess ultimately what you're saying is, we know that it's here, you say it's not, by we, I mean the parish. We, if these are implemented, we're confident that you're gonna build on the servitude, hypothetically. It's their job to prove that we're not, that they're not. It's not our job to prove that we're right, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think Sam,
Yeah, I mean-
I think Sam is concerned. I mean, and we can talk about this some more, and it's really a thing for Chris to chime in on. Sam just wants a clear, definitive paragraph in there that basically says, if the parish, plots, if the parish takes this as-built, that comes from a certified group, and plots a house on it, that their liability ends based on what that as-built says.
Now, the person asking for the permit's gonna put a plot plan together.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the person that's asking, okay, say for example, I buy a lot, I go get,
I think that would be understood.
yeah, well,
And look, again,
If you,
this isn't out of the ordinary. People put plot plans together in other parishes and make sure that nothing encroaches against, because you got
Right.
front building lines, you got back.
And you,
building lines.
you can
No, I
overlay
have
that
no
on a
problem with
computer
it
and see where
whatsoever.
everything is, right?
Yeah.
so, but, I mean, I think that we all, those were the concerns. They want in the ordinance to define that planning will be the caretaker of the as-built, and that permitting will request from planning a review, to make sure that it's done. And then Sam just wants some liability protection for the parish in that situation when they tell somebody no.
I think more times than not, you're gonna be talking about inches or a foot or two versus they got a drain, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, it's in the ordinance, you can't build your house in the drainage.
I know, but what happens is
Yeah.
if it's not checked, they don't,
Right.
they might have missed the drainage servitude, it might not been on the old plat, it might not been on plat they were given. They might have only bought their house off of a legal description.
And
There's so many different ways that it could happen. And then, at the end, a lot of times they require, the bank requires the foundation or mortgage survey or slab survey anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not a reason that they already doing it anyway, just turn it into the parish, show them that you out of servitude.
And Shane, and you gotta remember, there are times that subdivisions get built, and then they're not successful, and they're marketed, and somebody else buys them, and then lot lines are changed, and all kind of things happen, and servitudes are moved around, and you end up with some pipe where nobody thought it was. I mean, I'm just saying, trust me,
The pipe didn't move, but the lines did, and that put the house over the edge of the, and
I mean, there were lots, there's one in Live Oak Village right now that originally that wasn't even supposed to be something built there. And then later on, all of a sudden, there's a house there and there's a drain line running under it. I'm just telling you, it sounds like it shouldn't happen, but it does, and I think they're concerned about liability.
So we need to get that all in place to cure it.
They just want some wording about liability in order. I'm just relaying the conversation.
it shouldn't be a big deal putting it in there. If it's not necessary, it's not necessary.
So where are we on this? Are we ready to submit?
Well, we still got,
I think number one, the girls need some guidance from Chris where it needs to, in our code of ordinances it needs to sit.
yeah.
Okay.
And it's probably gonna be somewhere toward the end of the subdivision ordinance that addresses who does what, because basically you're not gonna be able to sign the final plat until this is done, so it's gonna be there. At the same time, I think those girls want somewhere in another, it might be in a completely different section, they want an outline of what we're gonna utilize this for, so that when some mass builder comes in and submits, 14 permits, you know what I'm talking about? That it's gonna, all of a sudden, it might slow it a day. It might slow it a day for the approval of those permits, because all those 14 plots have to go, to planning for review. And so I think they want it outlined. They don't want somebody calling somebody above them and saying, I submitted these plans yesterday, I'm looking for a permit today. You know, the process is gonna change a little bit, it's gonna drag out, and so that, I think they want it delineated in the ordinance so that, you know.
They'll know ahead of time they
everybody
gotta do all
So
this.
we have, you have a better shape of what we want,
So,
right? That's okay, I can't say, where we want to be for like next week, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So we'll just kind of continue discussion next
Right.
week. Go ahead, Shane.
I just wanted, I know Derek and him's been working pretty heavy on this and, pretty knowledgeable about it, but this specifically applies to what? Is it subdivisions with improvements? Is it commercial developments? Is it minor subdivision? What specifically, and where's that documented at?
I would think it would be any subdivisions with improvements that had, and those improvements included drainage. Drainage and sewer is really your two big as-bills. If there's a ditch that they want Drainage District 1 or one of the drainage districts to take over, I would think we would do an as-built on that ditch. So I do agree with you. I think we need to define what some of that is, but I think anything, see, here's the deal. DPW will have to take over all the pipes within the road right of way. Drainage District will have to take over any pipes outside that road right of way along with any laterals. So I think having those two areas covered is what you're trying to do, is the long-term, you're trying to minimize the long-term maintenance or the
Yeah.
short-term maintenance.
Make sure it's developed properly.
But I mean, Jamie addressed the Amy Road project, you know what I'm talking about? And about sewer lines and telephone lines and
Stuff
water
all
lines
over the
and
place
gas
that wasn't
lines
supposed to
need to
be.
be in the as-built too, because you remember that Amy Church Road
That was a
project.
nightmare, yeah.
When it got to the intersection right there, and
Yeah.
that sewer line, was it a sewer line or gas line or whatever
It
was
was
in the way?
sewer, wasn't it, in the way?
Sewer and gas.
Right,
And
and
telecommunications.
so
and-
it was right in the elevation, and the box had to be redesigned, and stuff had to be
Right.
done to make that thing work. And if the as-built would have shown that stuff on the front end, and so I
agree with that.
think subdivisions with improvements and commercial developments need to be
Yeah.
addressed in this as-built situation.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
All right,
All right. What's that?
So the three things, where is it gonna go? Outline an implementation process or procedure and a liability statement. That's pretty well.
Those are the three things that
Think
we
you
need
got
to
it?
figure out for next week. Plus, we need to put in the wording that is to address commercial developments and subdivision with improvements.
nice.
In closing, I just want to say it's the most wonderful thing to have y'all work on this routinely during the week, to fix all these things, to put all this together so that eventually Livingston Parish can be developed properly. Good job.
Yeah,
Kudos
yeah,
to the-
I agree.
to the
Yeah,
deputy
thank you,
clerk.
ladies.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else? I'm gonna make a motion.
Did you guys have anything comment? All right. Motion to close?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Talbot.
Second?
Second by Mr.
I'll let you be
Mac.
number two all
All
night.
in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed.